Welcome into NFL on 365 Sports. I'm your host, Grayson Grunhafer, and we are going to continue our mock draft special. Obviously, the draft starts on Thursday, so we have a lot to cover. Today, we're going to be talking about the Green Bay Packers. Let's do it. All right, so what an offseason it was for the Green Bay Packers. I mean, this was kind of one of those weird, fascinating, and then ended up being kind of a good result offseason. I mean, you were able to get Aaron Rodgers back, which was awesome. That was kind of the main priority, and that was honestly, I think, the information we needed to find out about this team and whether they were going to go full rebuild or if they were going to continue to try to compete for championships. The kind of off-the-wall thing that happened was the star wide receiver Davante Adams left, which honestly was completely shocking because Aaron Rodgers and him have had such a good relationship on the field that you thought there's no way that he would leave once Rodgers was returning. That did not happen to be the case, as he's now a Las Vegas Raider. So now the Packers have a lot to decide here. And I think based on their past drafts and based on what they've done, they really have to figure out a way to build this offense around Aaron Rodgers. And I know they've tried, or at least they've said they tried to do that in the past, but I think the results speak for themselves. They really have not built the team with a whole lot of offensive weapons. I mean, they got lucky with the Aaron Jones pick. They spent a decent draft capital on A.J. Dillon, so they've really spent the money on the run game. But now they need to address the passing game to help Aaron Rodgers out because they're missing possibly the best wide receiver in the NFL. So lots of picks to go through. I'm going to go through the first 3 rounds of picks, in which the Packers have 5 of those. So they have a great opportunity here to maximize value while also potentially giving themselves a chance to make another run at a Super Bowl. So the first pick at number 22, and I promise you, this is going to be kind of the outlier of selections that I have for the Packers because I am going to focus a lot on the offensive side. But at pick number 22, I think the value is too great for them here, for them to pass on this guy. And it's Daxton Hill, the safety out of Michigan. A former 5-star prospect, an absolute monster in the secondary who will provide versatility in the run game and the pass game. And his speed is just something you can't really account for. And the reason I think they end up taking a defensive guy here is because I think there's room for them to grow in the secondary. I don't think there's necessarily a pass rushing option that I love here late in the first round. So why not go out, try to bolster the secondary, which is an area that I think they do need to address a little bit. And with his versatility in the run game, I think it will really help this defense take another step forward. Moving on to pick 28, and here comes the offensive run for the Green Bay Packers. At pick 28, they're going to get, I'm not going to say he's my favorite wide receiver in this class because that is Garrett Wilson, but this is a guy at this value that I really love. And it's kind of risky, but I think he's worth it. And that's George Pickens, the wide receiver out of Georgia. I just love his upside. He has great size, a great frame to really come in and replace Davante Adams, and that's what they need. They need a big outside receiver. They can't go into this pick and take a guy like a Jahan Dotson, a smaller wide receiver. That's not what they need. They need the ability to stretch the field on the outside, but also give Aaron Rodgers the ability to throw jump balls to the corner of the end zone and take shots down the sideline, which has been such a focal point of this offense with Davante Adams. So they need a guy that can come in and replace that. And I think George Pickens is the guy that can do that. He had 49 receptions for 727 yards and 8 touchdowns his freshman year. 36 receptions for 513 yards and 6 touchdowns his sophomore year. He was terrific, and then last year he got hurt. Injuries derailed him, and that's what happens. Now he falls a little bit because at one point he was the top wide receiver in this entire draft class before this past year. Moving on to pick 53, now we're in the second round here. And I think last year, one thing that I noticed about the Packers is they kind of miss Robert Tonyan. And I think they want to address the tight end position, but I think they can do it with a versatile weapon. And the guy that I'm looking at here is Trey McBride, the tight end out of Colorado State. He had 1,121 yards and 1 touchdown this year. Kind of an amazing stat that he had that many yards and only 1 touchdown. He also had 90 receptions. So wasn't able to find the end zone, but I think his ability over the middle of the field is going to be really nice for Aaron Rodgers, a nice safety blanket for this offense. But the biggest reason I think he's a great selection here is because he's also a very good run blocker. And I do think the Packers, while I know they're going to trust Aaron Rodgers, they're going to throw the ball a ton. They have two really good running backs and a very stout offensive line. I think they're going to want to rely on that and run it a lot more and also incorporate a lot of play action. And so for that reason, I think the tight end position is going to be really important for this offense. Go out and get possibly the best tight end in this draft class in Trey McBride, and I think he will do really good things in that Packers offense. Moving on to pick number 59, moving back to the defensive side. And this is really just a going on raw talent, high upside type player, but I think he could help the Packers in a number of ways. But it's Dominique Robinson, the pass rusher out of Miami of Ohio. So he started his first 2 years at wide receiver at Miami of Ohio and then flipped to the defensive side of the ball. He had 4.5 sacks this year as a guy who's only been playing defensive line for 2 years, with one of those years being the COVID shortened year. He's up to 6'4", 252 pounds. I just think there's a lot of upside there as a pass rusher, and I think the Packers need that. And if there's one thing we've learned throughout this entire offseason is how much of a premium pass rushing is. And you're seeing some of those top teams in the NFL really addressing that position. So why not the Packers? Why not they go out, try to do that, try to find a guy who could provide a high ceiling a couple years from now. I'm not sure if he's going to be an elite pass rusher this year, but I think you're going to see him take steps and steps forward over his career. Finally, at pick 92, we are now in the third round of the draft. Another top 3-round pick for the Packers. And this is where I think they go after wide receiver again. And this is Wan'Dale Robinson right here, the Kentucky wide receiver. He had over 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns this year. And to me, this is just a guy who you want on your team because of how explosive he is. He's going to help them in the return game, punt and kick return. He's going to allow Rodgers to throw him short passes and make plays after the catch, which again is something that they can use to try to make up for the loss of Davante Adams. So you pair him with George Pickens. You have other weapons now around Aaron Rodgers, and you give him a safety blanket, a guy who will create after the catch on his own and really not force Rodgers to do a whole lot when he throws him the football. I think that's needed. And for a third-round pick, I think this is a guy who's very, very explosive and can absolutely help this offense take another step in the right direction. So now, how about some other fits? These are some other guys I think could fit the Packers roster, but it kind of depends on where they get to pick them. So when you're talking about Justin Ross out of Clemson, he could be a nice pickup because, again, big outside receiver. Kenyon Green on the offensive line, if they want to continue to build the depth at the guard position, continue to try to just run the ball down people's throats, which they did a lot of times last year. Again, for me, I think they need to address the passing game a little bit more, but he could be a nice fit as well. And then I mentioned Jahan Dotson not being the perfect fit for this offense. Well, what if they take 2 wide receivers in their first 3 picks? And then you can take a smaller wide receiver and try to use him with the big wide receiver on the outside, and then you kind of have that 1-2 combo with Dotson being the dynamic deep threat down the seam, in the slot, or on the outside as well. Now, as far as trade-up options, this is the kind of final area that I'm looking at for the Packers right now. There was a report that Darren Waller is getting interest from the Packers. Now, that would absolutely change some things for me as far as their draft process goes. I do wonder what they'd have to give up for him, but if they don't have to give up a ton of draft capital, you're able to get Waller, and he kind of slides into the Davante Adams role. He's just not as fast, but my goodness, on the outside, you get a big playmaking tight end who is an absolute animal in the red zone. I mean, that would almost be a perfect scenario for the Packers because then you could go out and really attack smaller wide receivers, attack maybe another big tight end, and really not have to focus all your attention on trying to find that true outside receiver because you might get one with Darren Waller. So very fascinated how that position ends up. I know I had them taking Daxton Hill. There have also been some reports about Notre Dame safety Kyle Hamilton as well. Maybe they try to trade up and get him, trade one of their firsts and seconds to try to move inside the top, I'd probably say 13 picks in order to get him. That's a possibility as well. But I think overall, they have a lot of draft picks, a great opportunity to finally help Aaron Rodgers. Now they just need to do it. This has been NFL on 365 Sports with Grayson Grunhafer. Please check out our next videos. We're going to continue previewing this mock draft with the NFL draft coming up on Thursday night. Catch you later.